The warship of the Quran Empire moved silently through the endless dark of space. Its metal body was strong, filled with soldiers, weapons, and pride. The Quran were old conquerors, and they had fought many enemies across the stars. To them, war was almost a game. They were sure of their power, sure that no race could stand against them. Inside the ship, the soldiers gathered in the mess hall. The hall was bright, full of noise and full of laughter. Cups hit the tables. Boots stamped on the floor. The air smelled of strong alien drinks. The young soldiers sat together, telling stories about their enemies. And as always, the humans became the center of their jokes. One soldier, tall and strong, raised his cup. His scales glimmered under the lights. "Humans?" he shouted, his voice echoing across the hall. "They are nothing. Soft skin, weak bones, no claws, no armor. They are like children wandering into the battlefield." The others roared with laughter. Some banged their fists on the table. Another soldier stood up, grinning wide. "I heard they covered themselves in cloth and metal shells. They look like insects pretending to be warriors." More laughter followed. Someone imitated a human voice, speaking in broken tones, pretending to beg for mercy. The crowd cheered, their sharp teeth flashing as they laughed louder. The younger recruits, who had never seen humans, joined in. For them, the stories were just entertainment. The humans were a weak race. They were no threat. But at one table, an old warrior sat in silence. His body was scarred. His armor was simple, worn by years of battle. His eyes, cold and heavy, did not share the laughter. He drank slowly, staring into his cup. The younger ones noticed him. One recruit leaned closer and asked, "General Vorak, why do you not laugh with us? Do you not find humans funny?" The noise of the hall softened. Some soldiers turned their heads toward the old warrior. Vorak slowly placed his cup on the table. His voice was low, deep, and calm. "No," he said, "I do not laugh at humans." The room grew quiet. The sound of laughter died, replaced by confusion. A few soldiers frowned. "What do you mean, General?" one asked. "They are the weakest race we have ever faced. Surely you cannot defend them." Vorak's eyes narrowed. His memory stirred. He looked around the hall at all the eager young faces who had never seen true war. His scarred hands rested on the table. "You laugh," he said slowly, "because you have not faced them in battle. You laugh because you do not know the sound of their weapons." The soldiers exchanged puzzled looks. A whisper moved through the hall. Some smirked, thinking the old general was joking, but his face remained cold, carved like stone. The same recruit asked again, curious and bold, "What sound? What makes them so different?" "They are just flesh and bone." Vorak leaned forward. His voice dropped to almost a growl. "The day you hear their guns begin to sing, the day you hear thunder that does not stop, you will not laugh." Silence filled the mess hall. The soldiers felt a strange chill, though the air was warm. Some of them forced small laughs, trying to break the tension, but they could not meet the old warrior's eyes. He sat back, his mind drifting far away. He was no longer in the hall. He was back in the past, standing on a burning field under a sky filled with smoke. He could almost hear it again, that terrible sound, that endless storm of metal tearing through the air. But he said nothing more. He only lifted his cup and drank, while the younger soldiers sat uneasy. For the first time, the jokes about humans did not feel so funny. The mess hall was silent. Only the soft hum of the warship's engines filled the air. The laughter had died, and now every soldier's eyes rested on the old warrior, General Vorak. He did not smile. He did not laugh. He simply stared at his cup as if the dark drink inside held memories too heavy to speak aloud. At last, a young officer broke the silence. "General, you speak as if you fear them. Fear humans? That cannot be true." The words were bold, almost mocking, but the officer's voice carried a nervous edge. No one dared to laugh this time. Vorak lifted his eyes. The scars across his face caught the light. His stare was sharp, heavy, and unshaken. "I do not fear easily," he said. His voice was deep and steady, carrying the weight of countless battles. "But I respect danger when I see it. And humans are dangerous." A murmur spread across the room. Soldiers leaned closer, curiosity burning in their minds. One recruit asked, "But General, they have no fangs, no claws, no scales. They are not strong. How can they be dangerous?" Vorak's lips pressed into a hard line. His gaze grew distant, as if he was seeing another place, another time. "You see only their bodies. Weak flesh, soft skin. That is what fools see. but I have seen what hides inside them. They have something many of us have forgotten. The young ones shifted uncomfortably. What is it? Another asked. Vorak leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. His voice dropped lower, forcing the soldiers to listen closely. The will to fight. The will to endure. The will to kill even when death is certain. The recruits blinked, unsettled. They had never heard humans described with such words. The officer from before snorted.
Will, bah!
What is will against plasma cannons? Against armor and shields? We have crushed stronger races with our power. What makes humans any different? Vorak's head turned slowly, his eyes burning with an old fire. What makes them different? He repeated. Then his voice thundered across the hall. Because when humans fight, they do not stop. They do not retreat. And when their weapons sing, even the strongest warriors fall silent. The officer opened his mouth to answer, but no words came out. The weight in Vorak's voice made his chest tighten. The hall grew colder, as though the fire of laughter had been replaced with the shadow of something unseen. One recruit, his scales still bright and unscarred by war, whispered, You faced them, didn't you, General? Vorak closed his eyes for a moment. He could see it all again. The smoke, the fire, the sound of a weapon that never seemed to end. Slowly he nodded. Yes, he said. His voice was almost a growl. I faced them. I fought on the fields of Draven Prime. We outnumbered them 3-1. We had the skies, the ground, the power. We thought the battle was already won. The young soldiers leaned forward, their eyes wide. Vorak's claws scraped lightly against the table as he spoke. And then, we heard it. A sound we had never known before. Not clean like energy weapons, not silent like blades, but thunder. Endless thunder tearing the air apart. That was the first time I heard their guns. His voice grew heavy. His eyes darkened. And that was the last time I ever laughed at humans. A shiver passed through the recruits. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The soldiers who had once mocked humans now stared in silence, their drinks forgotten. The old warrior leaned back in his chair. His scars seemed deeper under the harsh light. You will laugh today, he said. But one day perhaps you will stand where I stood. And when the storm of metal begins, you will remember this warning. No one replied. No one dared. The mess hall remained quiet, filled only with the hum of the ship and the weight of unspoken fear. General Vorak lifted his cup again, but his drink tasted bitter. For he knew the war was not over. Somewhere, far out in the dark, the humans were still waiting. And when they returned, the galaxy would hear their thunder once more. The battlefield of Draven Prime was a wasteland of smoke and fire. Once it had been a mining world filled with machines, tall towers, and human workers. But when the Koran Empire invaded, it became nothing more than a graveyard of steel and stone. General Vorak remembered the day clearly. His army had landed with thunder, their ships blackening the sky. The ground shook as thousands of soldiers marched forward. Their armor shone under the burning sun, their weapons glowing with deadly power. The humans waited in silence. Vorak had stood on a ridge, looking down at the battlefield. He saw them, rows of human soldiers lined behind broken walls and ruined buildings. They looked small, fragile, unremarkable. Their helmets hid their faces, their bodies covered with simple armor made of steel and cloth. In their hands they carried weapons that looked old, almost primitive compared to Koran plasma rifles. The young Koran warriors laughed. Look at them, one shouted. They bring toys to fight us. Another soldier barked out a laugh. This will be over before it begins. Vorak had believed the same. How could such fragile creatures resist the might of the Empire? The Koran horn sounded. The order was given. The army advanced. At first everything went as expected. The alien ranks moved forward, heavy boots crushing the soil. Their energy weapons fired in bright flashes, burning holes into the walls where the humans hid. Smoke and dust filled the air. Human defenses looked ready to collapse, but then, it happened. A sound tore across the battlefield. A sound none of them had ever heard before. It was not the clean hiss of plasma fire. It was not the sharp crack of energy beams. It was something else. A roar, a growl of thunder, a storm that refused to stop. Da-da-da-da-da-da. The sound echoed through the ruins, 1,000 strikes of metal ripping the air apart. It was not one weapon. It was many. The humans had unleashed their guns. Vorak remembered the first moment his soldiers were hit. Koran warriors fell, their armor shredded as if it were paper. They collapsed into the dirt, blood spraying in the air. Confusion spread. Soldiers looked around, trying to understand. What is that sound? One screamed, another shouted, our shields do nothing. And it was true. The metal storms cut through armor and shield alike. Every burst of fire ripped holes into the advancing army. Warriors who had never known fear now felt it in their bones. Vorak's heart pounded. The air was filled with screams, with thunder, with the endless rain of bullets. The humans did not retreat. They did not falter. They rose from behind the walls, their helmets shining, their guns roaring. They fired together, moving like one machine, one living storm. Every second more Koran fell. Their laughter was gone. Their pride was gone. All that remained was fear. The young commander near Vorak shouted in panic. This is impossible. They cannot. His words were cut short. A burst of fire struck him. His body fell lifeless at Vorak's feet. The general's claws tightened around his weapon. For the first time in many years, he felt his chest tighten, not from anger, but from something colder. Something he had not felt since his youth. Fear. The thunder of human guns continued without end. 3,000 rounds per minute. The sound was not just noise, it was music. A deadly rhythm. A song of war. And Vorak understood in that moment why humans survived. Why they were dangerous. It was not their bodies, not their armor, not even their weapons. It was their will, their refusal to break, their hunger to fight until nothing was left. The battlefield shook with the roar of human fire. The Quran army, so proud, so sure, began to collapse. Warriors who once mocked humans now ran, desperate to escape the storm. But there was no escape. Not on Draven Prime. Vorak stared across the field, his eyes locking on one human soldier who stood tall in the smoke. The soldier's face was hidden by a steel helmet, but Vorak could feel his eyes through the visor. Cold, determined, unafraid. The gun in the soldier's hands roared again, and Vorak knew then the laughter of his people would never return. The battlefield of Draven Prime was no longer a place of war. It was a place of slaughter. The Koran army, once proud and loud, now stumbled in panic. Their marching rhythm was broken. Their formations collapsed. The sound of their horns and orders were drowned beneath one single terrifying noise. Da-da-da-da-da-da. It never stopped. It never slowed. A storm of bullets filled the air like rain made of steel. Vorak had seen many battles in his life. He had seen plasma cannons tear holes through starships. He had seen cities fall under fire. But nothing compared to this. The human guns spat fury at 3,000 rounds per minute. Each second was a nightmare. The ground itself seemed to scream as metal tore into soil, stone, and flesh alike. Koran shields failed. Their armor cracked. Warriors fell by the dozens, their bodies torn apart before they even understood what killed them. The proud laughter of the Empire was gone. Now the only sounds were screams of pain, roars of panic, and the endless thunder of human weapons. One young soldier near Vorak dropped his rifle. His eyes were wide with terror. "General," he cried, "we cannot fight this. We must retreat." Before Vorak could answer, the soldier's chest exploded. The boy collapsed, lifeless as the storm swallowed him. Vorak's claws tightened around his weapon. His heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to give orders, to lead his men, to restore order. But the thunder allowed no room for thought. Every command was lost in the storm. The Quran were warriors trained from birth to fight. They had fought beasts with teeth the size of blades. They had fought empires with fleets greater than stars. But nothing in their long history had prepared them for this. This was not a battle. This was the sound of death itself. Vorak turned his eyes to the humans. They did not run. They did not hide. They stood shoulder to shoulder, their helmets dark, their faces unseen. They were not just soldiers. They were machines of war. Every gun fired in rhythm, every burst of thunder timed as if guided by one heart. The ground shook beneath their fury. The air smelled of blood and iron. The smoke covered their ranks like a shroud, making them look less like men and more like shadows of death. For the first time in his long life, Vorak felt the truth. His empire had made a mistake. They had thought humans were weak, but weakness does not stand against death. Weakness does not charge forward into fire. Weakness does not hold the line when outnumbered 3-1. These creatures were not weak. They were dangerous. More dangerous than anything the Quran had ever faced. The human guns continued, tearing through warrior after warrior. Limbs flew. Blood sprayed. Corran roars of defiance turned into screams of terror. Entire squads were erased in seconds, and the humans, they did not even cheer. They did not laugh. They fought in silence, their guns speaking for them. One Corran captain tried to rally his unit. He raised his blade, roaring, "For the Empire!" He charged forward. A burst of gunfire answered him. His body was shredded mid-step, his roar cut short. His soldiers stopped in place, horror freezing their legs. Vorak's breath grew heavy. He could smell death in the air. He could taste the iron. His soldiers were dying faster than he could count. In that chaos, his mind whispered a truth he could not deny. The humans were not prey. They were predators, and the Corran had walked willingly into their hunting ground. The thunder did not end. It rolled on, a song of destruction, a sound that carved itself into memory. The sound of death. Vorak knew then that his people would never forget this day. Because even if they survived, they would carry that sound forever. The storm of metal, the roar of the guns, and the silence that followed when laughter was gone forever. The battlefield of Draven Prime was drowning in fire and thunder. The Corran army had begun the day with pride. They had marched in perfect lines, their armor shining, their voices loud. But now those lines were broken. The proud march was gone. Their voices had turned to screams. Fear spread through the ranks like a poison. Vorak could see it in their eyes. The young soldiers no longer looked forward. They looked back. Back toward the ships. Back toward safety. Back toward anywhere but here. Their claws shook, their weapons slipped in their hands, and their breaths came quick and sharp. The thunder of the human guns did not stop. Da-da-da-da-da. It rolled across the battlefield like a living storm, beating against the ears and hearts of every warrior. "General," one officer shouted. His voice cracked. "Our lines are falling. We must retreat." Another screamed, "We cannot stand against them. Their weapons, what are those weapons?" No one answered. No one could. Vorak tried to raise his command staff to order his warriors to hold the line, but his voice was lost in the storm. His words were swallowed by the endless roar of bullets. Even if they heard him, would they listen? Would they obey? He knew the truth. They would not. The Corran Empire had never known such terror. Their battles were usually short, easy victories. Their enemies were crushed, their worlds burned, their people enslaved. But here, on this ruined human world, the Empire had met something new. Something it did not understand. The humans did not retreat. They did not surrender. They advanced. Through the smoke and fire, the human soldiers moved forward. Slow, steady, unstoppable. Their helmets hid their faces, but their guns spoke for them. Each burst of fire cut down another group of Corran. Each step they took drove the Empire further back. It was not just a fight. It was a hunt. Vorak's soldiers felt it in their bones. They were no longer predators. They were prey. One warrior dropped his weapon and ran. Another followed. Soon, more broke away, throwing down their rifles, screaming as they tried to escape the storm. The humans showed no mercy. Bullets chased the cowards, tearing into their backs. The battlefield was a graveyard, and the humans were the gravekeepers. Vorak's heart burned with shame. His empire had come here with laughter and pride. Now they fled like frightened beasts. He turned his gaze once more toward the humans. They looked so small in the smoke, so fragile, and yet nothing could stop them. Their will was iron, their fury endless. Every second the sound of death filled the air. Every second, fear spread deeper into Corran hearts. The general's mind whispered the words he did not want to say. This battle is already lost. But even worse than defeat was the feeling he could not escape. The feeling that this was not the last time he would hear the thunder. No, this was only the beginning. The mess hall was silent. The young Corran soldiers sat frozen, their drinks untouched. The fire of laughter that had filled the room earlier was gone. In its place was only the heavy weight of the old warrior's words. General Vorak leaned back in his chair. His eyes were not looking at the soldiers around him. They were staring into the past, into the burning fields of Draven Prime. Finally, one recruit whispered, almost afraid of his own voice. "General, did you survive? How?" Vorak's claws tapped slowly against the table. His voice came low and steady. "I survived because I ran. Because when the storm of bullets came, there was nothing left to fight. We did not win that battle. We barely escaped it. The recruits exchanged uneasy looks. Some shifted in their seats. Others kept their eyes fixed on the old general, afraid to blink, afraid to miss a single word. The youngest of them, bold but trembling, asked, "But why, General? How could humans with such weak bodies defeat us? We are stronger, faster, smarter, we have better weapons. How did they do it?" Vorak turned his gaze toward him, and for a moment, the weight of that stare made the young recruit wish he had stayed silent. "Because," Vorak said, "humans fight with something far greater than claws or armor. They fight with will." The word echoed in the hall like a blade striking stone. "Will?" one soldier repeated, frowning. "Yes," Vorak said firmly. "The will to fight when death is certain. The will to stand when the body is weak. The will to kill when every enemy believes you are already finished." He paused, his voice deepening. "That is what makes them dangerous. That is why they cannot be crushed so easily." The recruits stared in silence. The idea was strange, almost alien to them. They were raised to believe strength was in power, in weapons, in dominance. But this old general spoke of something unseen, something within. One officer, older than the rest but still young compared to Vorak, leaned forward. His voice was sharp but uncertain. "So, are you saying humans are stronger than us?" Vorak's jaw tightened. His scars seemed deeper in the harsh light. "No, physically they are not. But strength is more than flesh. It is more than weapons. Strength is what remains when everything else is gone. And in humans, that strength is endless." He let the words hang in the air. None dared to interrupt. Vorak lifted his cup again, but this time he did not drink. He stared into the dark liquid as if he could see the faces of the humans he had fought, faces hidden by helmets, eyes cold with determination. "When they fight," Vorak continued, "they fight with a fire I have seen nowhere else. We laughed at them once. We thought they were prey. But that day, we learned the truth. They are predators, silent, patient, deadly." The recruits shifted again. The memory of their laughter now felt hollow, shameful. Vorak placed his cup down with a sharp thud. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Never underestimate them. Never laugh at them. For the day you hear their weapons begin to sing, the day you hear that endless thunder, you will remember me, and you will know why I warned you." The room was heavy with silence. The young soldiers no longer smiled. They no longer mocked. For the first time, they felt the chill of a truth too sharp to ignore. And Vorak, the scarred veteran, leaned back in his chair. His eyes closed, but sleep would not come. He could still hear it even now, da-da-da-da-da. The thunder of death. The mess hall was still. No one dared to speak. The laughter that had once filled the air was gone forever. Now there was only silence, heavy and sharp like a blade pressed against the throat. General Vorak rose slowly from his seat. His old armor creaked as he stood, his shadow stretching long across the floor. His eyes scanned the room, passing over every young soldier, every eager recruit who had once mocked humans only moments before. None of them could meet his gaze. "You think war is glory," Vorak said, his voice low but strong. "You think victory is simple. That is because you have never seen true war. You have never seen humans when their guns begin to sing." He took a step forward. His boots echoed on the metal floor. Each sound seemed to strike the hearts of the young Koran like a hammer. They are not like us. They do not conquer for pride. They do not fight for honor. They fight for survival. And when survival is at stake, there is no limit to what they will do. The soldiers sat frozen, their jaws tight, their claws gripping the edge of their tables. Vorak's voice grew harsher, filled with fire. "They will burn their own worlds to ash if it means victory. They will fight with bloodied hands when their weapons are gone. They will tear the galaxy itself apart before they ever kneel." The silence grew heavier. Some of the recruits shifted in discomfort, their scales prickling. Vorak's scarred face darkened. "So laugh if you want. Mock them, call them weak. But remember this." He raised a clawed finger and pointed at the hall, at the young soldiers who trembled under his stare. "When you hear that sound, when the air shakes with thunder, when the earth screams beneath a storm of 3,000 rounds per minute, it will already be too late. Your laughter will be gone. Your pride will be gone, and all you will know is fear." The hall was silent. Not a breath, not a whisper. The young soldiers sat stiff, their eyes wide, their hearts heavy with the weight of his words. Vorak's shoulders lowered. His voice softened, though it carried even more weight now. "I was there. I saw it, I heard it, and I survived only to bring you this warning. He stepped back toward his seat, his steps slow, his eyes distant. Do not underestimate them. Do not provoke them. For when humanity is pushed to the edge, the galaxy itself trembles. Vorak sat down again, but he did not drink. He only closed his eyes. In his mind, the sound returned. Da 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 da, the endless thunder of human guns. And as it echoed inside him, the young recruits sat frozen in silence, each one feeling that same sound in their bones, a sound they had never heard before, but one they knew they would never forget. The fire in the hall burned low. The shadows grew long, and the galaxy, vast and endless, felt suddenly smaller, darker, and far more dangerous. Because somewhere out in that darkness, the humans waited, and when the laughter ended, their guns would speak again.